still am. Like, I'm a voracious learner around the human behavior. Anything I can read or learn or do a course on about understanding the human condition and how it impacts. And I think what I came to understand early on my journey up the mountain the second time, if you like, was that how we behave, how we show up, who we are, what I call my inner game, how that has a huge impact on the results that you get externally. And so go back to my real estate career for a little while, is that because I was working in that commercial industrial space, I was meeting a lot of business owners at the different levels on the spectrum of quite average business owners to very multi-million dollar property owners who had successful businesses. And because we're working in that space, so I got to meet a lot and being very curious. And I was having this study going on in the background of myself and human behavior. I was trying to figure out what was the difference between the ones that were really successful versus the ones that weren't, or perceived not to be, because it's always hard to tell from the outside looking in, of course. Trying to also manage our business growing, we got some coaching. So I got some personal coaching, joined quite a lot of networking groups. And really, after about 5 or 6 years on that trail, just a mentor that I had at the time said, you should be teaching other people how to do this because you've got a good knack for it. You understand human behavior a lot better than what most people that I've come across. And it's just because it's a fascination for me. It's like a hobby almost now. And the idea was then connected to is that not necessarily be on a strategic, tactical level, which is where a lot of consultants and business coaches are at, and valuable as they are, but really more about on the mindset and understanding what is it that drives us to make the decisions that we do to get the results we get. And I had a very much a strong test case of my own that I went through some, what I call a valley, and had to find my way out of it. And I needed help around me to do that. So it's very important that for business owners out there who may be listening to this, is that don't try and do it on your own. As an entrepreneur, one of the things about the human condition is that we believe the personality type of entrepreneur is one that believes they can do it on their own. That's why they get into being an entrepreneur in the first time.
Exactly it. That's why you get into it, because you want to do it on your own and show everyone you can do it.
Yeah. And I think the problem is that you then run into problems, as we do, because there's no straight line to success in business. And what you're trying to do is smooth out that line so it's not too much of a zigzag. It's reasonably flat and going into it in the right direction. And I think what it is that you need assistance around it. Certainly, I just spoke to a new potential client yesterday about this, and it's just like having that objectivity from the outside looking in to what you are doing. There's nothing really broken, but how do you maximize the returns that you're trying to achieve so that you can actually get a better, more achievement, which is what you want for the time and effort that you're putting in. So how I got, in the end, I've made a conscious decision to use an Australian phrase, have a crack at it. And knowing, and to be fair, I did have a safety net in that I had a real estate company, so I didn't have to live and die on the money that I was making out of coaching. So I had a good opportunity for a year or so to test and measure. And I decided to not pick up anybody else's IP and run with it. I decided to develop my own IP based on my experience and what I was learning. And really, because there wasn't really much out there that I could find that tied that whole inner game experience with how does this impact our outer game, just that conversation. And yeah, I just set about, so I've got now a bank of models and formats and different things in the way I teach and how I show people and how I get them to evolve quite quickly. And it's not for everybody. So it's based on where you are on your journey. Because if you're a startup business in the first 1 to 3 years, this is probably I'm not going to be your guy, because you're still trying to survive and just get to a place. But this is more for business owners who have established something been around 5, 10, 15 years, have reached some glass ceilings.
Business.
Say again? Yeah, they've got a stable business. What I would say, a good business, but how do you get it to a great business? Because often what happens is business owners that may have a team of 5, 10, 15 people, but the business owns them. They're tied to it 70, 80 hours a week. They're probably thinking about it when they're not in the business for another 20 or 30. So potentially the 100 hours a week out of the 168 that we have, I think it is, that we're occupied with thinking about growing and developing this business. And so the work that I do is really try and help people step back a bit, actually, in the first instance, is actually have a good look at where they're at and how to structure it differently and using their internal operating system to manage themselves. And I call this personal leadership, because until you can start, leading yourself, you certainly can't lead a team. And I think that's what happens. People try to lead a team of people outwardly without really understanding themselves at a deeper level. And potentially that's what I did going back pre-2008. So really, yeah, it's very much a human experience journey, and we can go into that if you want. But yeah, that's how I got into coaching. And then within the space of 12 months, I knew I started to get impact and people wanted to listen to what I had to say. And as I said, if you're in the right place and the right times, the old saying is that when the student's ready, the teacher will appear. And so this is really about, I don't go chasing people now. I think that when you're agitated and when you need help, you'll get to a place in your world where you go, I'm reaching brick walls. And if you've got that self-awareness, which is what this is all about, to understand and see that, the people that take the step to get help are the ones that generally improve really quickly. And that's my experience. And the library's full of books of people who've done that, and we've got great stories to show for it. And so, so that's how I got into coaching, and really loving it.
It's amazing how if you step back and you give that person that opportunity, because that's what we do for our coaching too, is I can tell you within 5 minutes if someone reaches out, if they're going to be willing to change and make that effort to take the coaching on. And I always have a saying, I'll be here when you're ready. It's just that simple. Everybody doesn't want to change. Everyone doesn't want to take on a coach. Unfortunately, a coach is sometimes determined or viewed, I should say, as a 4-letter word. I get it. I really want to get into your coaching and how you look at it, because there's plenty of entrepreneurs that are listening to this, and some of them might be at a place where they have a stable business and they want to grow or scale. How does it start, and what does it look like? Do you look at the inner game first, or the outer game? How does it start, and how do you roll into the business to get them to where they need to be, and then scale and grow, and then find a way to be able to pull themselves away from the business and be able to manage it at a higher level?
Yeah, no, it's a big question, Ryan. But
Sorry.
I'll start off. No, that's cool. That's cool. It's a good question. But as I say, I say to people, it's never just one thing. Okay, it's always a multitude of lots of things. But I'll go back to the start. It was like, the great saying is that until the pain of staying the same is not as big as the perceived pain of change, because we think
I like that.
Because it's perceived, right? We create this perceived pain of change that if I go and get a coach, he's going to tip me upside down. He's going to show me that I don't know what I'm doing. And we're moving away. And from understanding the human condition, we're built to feel safe and move away from pain towards pleasure. And we will probably put up with the pain that we got more than what the perceived pain of change will be. And it takes sometimes a tipping point for people. So often people get help when they're at rock bottom, which is probably the wrong time to do it. That's probably what I would say. The first thing is that understand that if you're on a growth curve and you've got potentially a good business that's evolving underneath you, but you don't feel like you're in full control, because that's what we want. One of the human addictions is that we want control of where we're going. And the moment that we don't have control, we start to get agitated. We start to look externally of ourselves for all the answers. So this is where this is leading to. We start looking externally to the things that are impacting us. And there's 5 functions of every business. So to answer your question, what I do is I sit down with the person at the very start after I hear their story and figure out how they got to where they got to. So it's very much a process of understanding themselves, accepting how did you get to where you are now? Have you taken full responsibility? Do you accept where you're at? Because until you become aware and accept where you're at, you're never going to sustain any actions you take for change. Your conditioning of who you are is too strong that'll take you back to where it is. So you really got to go, okay, I accept that this is how I got to where I got to, whether it's good, bad, or indifferent. I'm accepting that I'm responsible for getting here, as much as that you want to look externally and maybe blame other people. Certainly what I did, global financial crisis, it was a great thing to blame. But because it was on everybody's lips all the way through, I'll blame that. That's that's a good thing to blame.
I think we all did it.
Yeah. So the 5, the way to best explain this, the difference between the outer game and the inner game is that the external parts of your business are made up of 5 functions. Every business on the planet have 5 functions, and the sales and marketing, operations, financing, money in and out, your delivery of your product or service or whatever it is, and then people challenges. And that comes in many shapes and forms, whether it's internal, as in your team, or the customers and clients that you're trying to attract. These become people challenges. And we generally outwardly do all that through strategies, tactics, methods, models, processes, systems, your vision, your goals, all these things make up. And so this is what a lot of consultants will help people piece together, is how to structure your business to do this. And this is all external of who you are.